Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. I'm Don Freeman.
I am Andy Jones Wilkins.
Andy, you're back. And I'm Scott War. Hey, thanks for coming back. This episode, we were thinking it's been a while since we've done an audio magazine or drop bag or grab bag. I don't know how many other words we have for it. They're all really the same kind of episode. But Andy reached out to us this week. Tell us what was going through your demented mind, Andy.
So I was out on a run. I'm in the final stages here of my training for Javelina 100 coming up here in a couple of days, and I was just out on a run in my neighborhood, and I was like, God, you know what? We haven't done a Trail Runner Nation in a while, and this might be a good time to do one. And so, I think the last time we did was our kind of annual prognostication episode for Western States. So it's been several months. And about that moment, I ran by a house that was, completely decked out for Halloween. And I thought, let's do a Trail Runner Nation Halloween episode. And so I got home and I texted you guys and I was like, hey, what do you guys think? Let's do a Halloween episode. And well, here we are. We're doing our Halloween episode.
And there was great deliberation.
We're calling this trick or treat. You want to tell us the rules behind trick or treat, Andy?
Hang on, though. Don was going to say there was a lot of deliberation.
Oh, there was. We deliberated on whether to do it or not for quite a while, I think. And timing is important with everything. And this fit perfectly in a few moments ago when I was going to say lots of deliberation. But we decided instantly, this is a great idea. Why didn't we think of it before? This is going to be great fun.
Yeah, I texted both of these guys, and Don was like, "What would that mean?" And Scott was like, "That's an awesome idea." And then Don just had like smiley face, and off we went. So my idea, my show, Halloween show. If it's a total clunker, if this episode is a total clunker, it's completely my fault. But here's what I came up with. I was thinking, kind of along the lines of audio magazine and grab bag, drop bag, various bags, that we would do a trick or treat episode. As Scott mentioned, this is trick or treat. And the way it works is in kind of classic Don, Scott, and AJW style. One of the members of the group presents a story, a scenario, something from the world of trail and ultra running and distance running and so forth, kind of tells a story or an anecdote or something. And the other two members of the group have to guess whether it's a trick, that is to say, it's a false story or untrue story, or it's a treat. It's an actual true story. Right. So if I were to tell a story by example of how, Jim Walmsley, skydived off Mount Everest and lived to tell the story, you guys might guess that it's a trick. And I might say, and you know what, the same Jim Walmsley, believe it or not, he's won Western States all this time. But back in the day, believe it or not, he was so caught up in the moment that he missed a turn at Western States and, ruined his lead and came in like 20th place or something. And you would say, well, that's a treat because we all know that's true. So that's how it would go.
Oh, this is the first I've heard the rules. Okay.
You got that, Don?
I'll morph my stories somewhere to fit in that scheme. So I brought a couple of truths, a couple of hoax. I don't know what I've got 3, and I'm not telling what distribution I have. That hint I'll give you.
You don't want to do that.
I would say in order for Don to get the idea of this, I think that we should maybe have him go last. So, and I want to say, I think now just this instant, I realized why Andy is doing this on Trail Runner Nation and not his crack a brew with AJW is because if it's a failure, this is just an experiment on Trail Runner Nation. And if it's a success, then he'll adopt it into his podcast that he does. So thank you, Andy, for letting us be the Petri dish.
You guys are like the pilot, right? So in season 9 of Crack a Brew, if you see a series of trick or treats, you'll know it was a success.
Well, let's
Andy,
kick
why
this
don't you
thing
go
off.
first let's have you go first since it was your idea.
Well, first, I do want to say, because Scott, this was another idea that you presented. You know, you mentioned Crack a Brew with AJW, which is a podcast where I usually ask every guest to come with a beverage. You know, we have some people bring beer, some people bring coffee, some people bring seltzer water. Recently, somebody brought like a cold brew coffee. You had the idea that we would be nibbling on our favorite Halloween candy during this episode. Maybe not actually, but maybe in the metaphorically. So while we're doing this, good. I just want everybody to know that I'm nibbling on my favorite Halloween candy, which are Reese's peanut butter cups. How about you, Don?
Well, heck, this is the first I heard about this bring your favorite. Do you guys have a separate chat channel that you guys use?
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Don, when that thing on your phone pops up that says you have a notification, you need to click on it.
Got it. Well, you know, I can take 2 steps over to a pantry, reach into a bucket, and pull out something that we have. So, Scott, share yours, and I'll be right back with mine.
Okay, he's going to go actually get one. Mine is unfortunately going to be a virtual or a hypothetical. I'm right there with you, Andy. I am a Reese's peanut butter junkie. Yeah. If there was a way to put a Reese's peanut butter into a goo packet, I would be running ultras every weekend, races every weekend, so that I could eat Reese's peanut butter cup goos.
Oh my gosh, what a brilliant idea.
Should I call Magna and introduce her, see if they can structure a deal with Reese's?
A Reese's peanut butter cup goo. I love that idea. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, Don,
so,
what do you got,
Scott,
Don?
your big reveal. I missed it, but I'm sure that it was probably fantastic, and I hope that you receive many of those this year as you go through your neighborhood. Today, I'm revealing my favorite, this Three Musketeers fun size bar. And I had to dig deep for this because maybe someone took all the ones off top already. So I'm not mentioning any names, but this is what I'm going to nibble on during the episode.
And I have to say, since I have been a guest in room 1 at Don's house before, that is not your average pantry that he just walked into. Oh my God. I mean, the apocalypse could be coming and you'd have food for a year in there. So not surprising that you were able to pull out a Three Musketeers. Okay, here we go. My first trick or treat is that there was recently a study published in Psychology Today. It was related to athletic performance. And, you know, these studies come along all the time, various aspects of athletic performance and what some of the ways in which athletic performance is measured and how perhaps what sort of hacks might be out there for people to, you know, get faster or have more endurance and so forth. And this research was based on there was a previous study which suggested that general athletic performance is improved if you drink tasty, sugary sports drinks. I think that's something, you know, most of us would know. There's some science behind it. But this was more of a psychological study because it said, in addition to that, it turns out that pink-colored drinks not only increase athletic performance, but make exercise more pleasurable. Pink-colored drinks, not green, not blue, nothing like the classic Gatorade, but pink. And this study has just blown up. And as you might imagine, every drink mix out there is now fighting and clamoring to make the best tasting pink drink they can find.
AJW, you are so good at this. If I was walking up to your home on Halloween night, your house is the one with all the scary things coming out of the lawn, the spider webs drizzled everywhere, and haunted music playing, and I'm expecting to come up and get the best full-size candy bar available. That's what I feel like with this story. Pink is the new color for performance. You know what? I love it so much. I want it to be true so bad. I'm just going to say yes to it. You got me hook, line, and sinker off the top with a true. That's my bet. Scott?
So,
With a
you think it's
treat.
So
With a
you think it's a
treat.
treat?
Oh,
You think it's a treat?
It's a treat. So
Okay.
I missed that text. Treat is true. Okay, it's a it's a truth. It is a treat. That is a true treat. What do you got, Scott?
You know, guys, all of you that are listening to this, you got to know that when Don gets into miles 70 and 80, his mind actually gets clearer. It's the opposite. All right, Andy, I'm gonna say it is a treat because I know that our friends at Tailwind Nutrition have been developing a whole lot of new flavors, and I think the one that they collaborated with Courtney DeWalter was a watermelon flavor, which is pink.
Mhm.
And so I am gonna say it's a treat.
I think they call that DeWalter melon, right? The DeWalter melon flavor.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's a great name if they didn't.
you guys are right. Believe it or not, this is
Wow.
true. Senior author Sanjay Deb and his colleagues at, get this, Westminster's Center for Nutraceuticals found that runners who use a pink drink as opposed to a taste-matched clear drink. So again, same flavor. Okay, they made the taste the same and had one that was pink and one that was clear, increased their exercise performance by 4.4%. They go
Wow.
on to say the pink drink also had a feel-good effect, which made running faster and farther seem easier. According to the researchers, this is the first study to investigate the effect that a sports drink's color has on performance. And finally, the researchers chose the color pink because pink beverages are typically associated with sweetness, which triggers expectation of sugar and carbohydrate intake prior to consumption.
I'm thinking about lemonade. You know, the
Pink
tasty,
lemonade.
refreshing
Absolutely.
lemonade.
Oh, and
Absolutely.
the pink variety of lemonade. You know, they make pink lemonade out there. So, you know, I often think to myself, why? Why would this be? And I think something clear in nature may not have the same carbohydrate or sugar boost that you're looking for as you're out there hunting and gathering. You see something pink, it catches your eye. You go to it, it's sweet, it gives you that boost. So I think color is just a tool that Mother Nature has to help us direct to the right nutrients. I think that's why that's why it's happening.
It would be, I think, an interesting study too would be a counter study, like what color drinks decrease athletic performance, right?
Oh.
You know,
Urine flavor, urine color.
I mean, one would immediately think something like brown or something like that, but coffee is brown. We know a lot of people drink coffee for, you know, the effect of caffeine, or people drink Coca-Cola in ultras all the time, and that's brown. So I don't know. I wonder what the color would be, the counter to pink. Maybe someone will do a study on that. But you guys got it. It was a treat, and it was a fun way to kick it off. So Scott, how about you? Trick or treat?
Well, before we go, I want to go back to Don's comment that he said pink is the color that nature would, you know, through the evolutionary chain, that we are drawn to the pink flavor because of nature. And I'm thinking, what color liquid in nature is pink? There is no natural pink liquid. So I'm going to call BS on that.
I mean, it's called the Red Sea, not the Pink Sea.
All right. You know, we started with the Courtney DeWalter watermelon, which could be close to pink. You know, the inside of a peach sometimes looks a bit pink. A raspberry might give a hint of a pink color. I don't know. But I got it. It's your turn, Scott. We'll tear yours apart.
I know. Here is mine, and it's actually coincidental. I'm reading a book right now called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. And now, Don, you may know, because you have a medical background, have you ever heard of HeLa cells? HeLa cells.
No.
I'm getting, by the look on your face, you're saying no. HeLa cells, I didn't know what they were, but they're named after Henrietta Lacks. And the reason they're called that way is back in the 50s, or even before the 50s, when they put tissue samples into a jar or into a test tube, they would put the first two initials of the first name and first two initials of the last name on the test tube. So this test tube that came or that marked cells from Henrietta Lacks. That's the reason why they're called HeLa cells. Anyway, Henrietta Lacks was a lady that grew up in the early 1900s. And in 1951, they harvested from her. They diagnosed her with cervical cancer. And they harvested some of those cancer cells from her without her knowledge. Back then, I guess they used to do that. And they put them in the lab and they sent them off. And they were the first and only, and I'm not sure if it's the only, but they were definitely the first immortal cells that were taken from a human, from actually anything, from any living creature. What they would do is what they were trying to do is take cells and trying to grow them in a petri dish and see if they could get these cells to live. Up to that point, they'd done dozens and dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of attempts. But it wasn't until they harvested these cervical cancer cells from Henrietta Lacks that they created these cells that could not only live, but they continued to reproduce. And today, every lab that you go to, and every research lab, if you were to ask the researchers to open up their refrigerator, almost all of them have HeLa cells in their refrigerator. Now, why is that important? Well, they use these HeLa cells to do research. And in fact, they've been used in research into cancer, into AIDS, the effects of radiation and toxic substances, gene mapping, and countless other scientific pursuits. HeLa cells were used by Jonas Salk to test the first polio vaccine in 1950. So these HeLa cells are prolific. Almost every lab has them, and they multiply and they continue to grow, and they call them immortal because they're the longest outside a living creature, living cells that have ever existed. And it all came from this lady named Henrietta Lacks. Well, it's a fascinating book. I'm about halfway through, but I started doing a deep dive. And as a matter of fact, they've used HeLa cells in research for endurance runners. And it's not conclusive yet, but they've developed a serum that they've tested with these HeLa cells that can rapidly, if you take this inoculation, can rapidly increase the production of mitochondria in the system for endurance athletes. And why do you want that? Well, the mitochondria are the powerhouse of endurance, right? So if you could inject yourself with this serum and your mitochondria explode and start multiplying and you gain more mitochondria than typically exercise would produce, then you become a better, stronger athlete that can recover from workouts even faster. And the research to date says that mitochondria adaptation through this serum can actually increase your performance up to 25%. So that's a long story, but so going from the HeLa cells and using those to create a solution or an advantage for endurance athletes by producing more mitochondria in the system.
Man, that was pretty convincing. And you had me with old Henrietta, and I'm actually pretty impressed you're reading a book about her.
I'm impressed he read a book.
Yeah. Now, well, Don, to be fair, he said he's reading the book.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, it could be he's in the prologue.
It could have been the cover.
I'm in
He read
chapter
the cover.
chapter 7. I'm in chapter 7.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we have done book studies here on Trail Runner Nation, but I think most of us just read the chapter that we have to talk about. I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it a trick. I had it as a treat up until the flip to the HeLa cell serum that you inject yourself with. I think probably the part of Henrietta, the HeLa cells being named after Henrietta, that's probably a treat. But I think that it flips over to a trick when, runners are injecting themselves with these immortal cells. I mean, it has a very sort of fountain of youth, quite kind of, folly to it. So I'm calling it a trick.
Yeah, and I'm not swayed by your position. I'm not swayed at all, AJW. I think that story was full of smoke, mirrors, and all kinds of trickery that goes on. There was so many facts weaving into the story. I mean, we went from research labs in 1950 to somebody not knowing they donated cervical cells and she was surprised by it. I mean, on and on it goes. I've just got to say that is a trick. There's probably a few pieces of truth woven in there for it to sound and feel good, but no, that's definitely a trick.
Well, Scott.
Well, you're both right. It is a trick. However, everything that I stated until the building of mitochondria was absolutely true. It was used actually in, I believe, coming up with a COVID vaccine. And just to give you an idea of how prolific these cells are, they say that 5,000 cells can fit on the tip of a needle. So if you were to take all the HeLa cells that are in the world right now and line them up, so 5,000 of them go on a pin needle, you would have enough HeLa cells to go around the globe 3 times. So almost every lab has these HeLa cells, and they are used every day in research. So all the previous stuff that I said, absolutely true. But
Scott, you've already lost. You can't rescue this. No.
There's no.
Well, it was a trick.
It's trick or treat. It's not trick and treat.
Yeah. Give me
like,
both hands.
It's like eating a Three Musketeers. It starts out good, but it turns out to be ick.
Okay. All right. So far we've had one treat and we'd have one trick. All right, Don, we've gone through 2 rounds now. Are you ready?
Yes. And I assume that Ryan's keeping score here. Ryan, do you have some kind of tally mark going on just to see? And we can review if you need to. I think I've got it right twice. So, and I don't know what everybody else did. I just know I've hit it. I've hit it right.
Well, you've got it right twice, and Andy has 1. I have 1.
Okay, here we go.
Go ahead.
In 2013, during a trail run in the Harvest Forest in Massachusetts, a group of runners stumbled upon something utterly unexpected of a grand piano, sitting alone in the clearing, deep in the woods. The piano was in remarkably good condition with a bench seat and sheet music placed neatly on top. There were no roads nearby, and the area was inaccessible to vehicles. Bewildered but intrigued, the runners approached and even played a few notes, which echoed hauntingly through the trees. To this day, no one has claimed responsibility for placing the piano there, and it remains a local mystery and continues to intrigue runners and hikers alike. Now, local runners know this, and so they're confirming it right now. They're going, totally, that's it, shaking their head. But it's up to you to decide.
Clarifying question.
Yeah.
Where exactly? I think you said Massachusetts?
Yeah, in the Harvest Forest.
Harvest Forest.
Yeah. Don't look it up. No Googling allowed.
No. We're not, by the way, we should have said that. No Googling allowed during this. Yeah. It's kind of like the rules you have when you're playing trivia in a one of those trivia things. Harvest Forest in Massachusetts, a grand piano,
2013, if that helps. Yeah.
2013. You gave
was
a couple
it in
of
tune?
kind of the bench.
Was
seat,
it in tune?
The sheet music.
Yes.
Was in tune. No roads or Scott. I'm kind of reminded of the guy who goes and plays the cello at Deadwood Cemetery every year at Western States.
Course.
Yeah.
Hey, and just to note, 26 minutes, and AJW did get in Western States. Go ahead, AJW.
Hey, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Don's a good storyteller. He can spin a yarn like nobody's business. I think it's a treat. I think that I think some enterprising New Englander maybe had an extra grand piano in their house, and maybe they're a trail runner who lives adjacent to the harvest forest, and they thought, rather than give this to charity or try and sell it to the Goodwill, or maybe just put it out in the forest and see what comes of it. So I'm calling it a treat.
Nice. Okay, Scott.
I'm going to follow lead. I'm going to follow the lead. I think it's a treat. I don't think that you could have come up with something that bizarre.
I love the confidence Scott has. Okay, you guys are both correct. This is a true story. Pianos and other large objects such as chairs or cars have been found in remote locations across forests and mountains with no clear explanation of how they got there. In Massachusetts, the grand piano was famously found in the Harvard forest, puzzling hikers and trail runners for years. A true story.
Hey, I will say this. I've run the trails around the up on the Western States Trail quite a while, and it wasn't until Don and I interviewed Hal Hall, who is grew up in Auburn. He's a legend in the Tevis Cup, which is the horse race that preceded Western States. He told us about a train engine that is on the trail just within yards of a trail that I've run hundreds of times. And Don and I went down that trail, and sure enough, there's a tiny railroad engine that's been there for, when the railroad went through there. So it's kind of interesting. You're right. There's lots of stuff all over the place.
It is interesting, though, in this case with a grand piano, right? Because a lot of these things, whether it's a train engine or an automobile, or we all know about like the old mining ruins that are along the Western States course, or even old, old ruins of there's a ruin of a school bus. It's on a famous trail in Virginia. But they kind of just ended up there, and the trail kind of grew around them or evolved. This is different because this is a grand piano that actually someone went to the effort to bring out there
without a road.
And since this is a Halloween episode, to build on the story of that train engine you're talking about, Matt Lambert, or Chops, who's been mentioned on this show a number of times but never appeared. He actually took, and he's a chiropractor, he took a full skeleton, a plastic one, of course, down to that train, set that skeleton in as the conductor, and then brought a number of Boy Scouts down there to show them this train that they found. And wow, there was a skeleton that was navigating this train at the time of his crash. Okay, so it looks like everybody's on board, doing pretty well. Even. We haven't really tricked anybody. Yeah, 2-2.
Yeah, we're even. Yeah.
All right,
Andy.
Well, I will go. We'll do in the second go round. Okay, I'm ready to go. So, UTMB, Ultra Trail Mont Blanc, and the whole organization around UTMB has been in the news a lot over the last several years for all kinds of different reasons. Their partnership with Ironman, some of the decisions they've made around various things in the sport. But really, really interestingly, last weekend out there in California, down in Southern California, was the fourth and final by UTMB race in North America for the year. As I think most people know, there's the Canyons by UTMB, there's the Speed Goat races by UTMB, there's the Grindstone races by UTMB, and then there's Kodiak races by UTMB. And at the Kodiak races, and there's and they actually had to scramble out at Kodiak. They had to do some rerouting because of because of fires kind of at the last minute, but they were able to pull it off. And, you know, I have several friends who ran the races. They have a 100-mile, 100K, you know, and shorter distances up there by Big Bear Lake, you know, beautiful area, you know, north of LA and you know, high 8,000 feet above the basin. Well, as the weekend was unfolding and the event was going on, one of the things that the race has evolved to provide is for various winners of age groups or top 3 overall or top 10 or certain, they earn a certain number of stones to potentially build up those stones and then qualify to run either CCC or UTMB. And age group winners can automatically gain complete entry and bypass the lottery and punch their ticket to Chamonix right away. Well, rumor has it, and again, at this point it was rumor, but it seems to be, you know, in the ethos that as a result of UTMB's incredibly robust popularity, I mean, more and more people want to run this race than can actually run it. They have announced a new policy allowing these people, if they want to trade in their stones or their entries for cash. Literally, they can trade them in. They can say, oh, you know what? I thank you. I had a great race. It was wonderful to run the Kodiak 100K. I'd be honored to come to UTMB, but I'll take the cash instead. You know, kind of equivalent to some businesses that might give their employees the opportunity to take the health insurance or take a cash payout. That is what UTMB is doing. And I think it's going to have an interesting impact. It could reduce the overall number of people in the lottery, which is what they might want to do. And of course, allow people to actually get some cash from running UTMB races. Because after all, not everybody who runs a race in California or Virginia or Utah necessarily wants to go run in France. And so I think this is brilliant, and we'll see how it ends up playing out.
So do they hand the person actual physical cash, or, you know, distribute it through their bank, whatever? They give them cash.
I mean, I don't know if they literally like a gas station attendant in the old days peel off a couple $100 bills and give them. But I think the way it works is the stones or the entry into the race has a certain kind of face value, right? Just like a ticket to a concert might have a face value, and in exchange for those stones, you get cash. I don't know whether it comes as a wire transfer or whatever, but yes, that's the proposal.
And so my question was, do you apply that cash to another race that they're doing in the future, or is it an actual a cash deposit of some kind?
It's a payout. It's a payout.
Okay.
No, it's not. I mean, I could see where you're going with that. Would it be like a race credit or something like that? Or no, it's a flat out payout. Here are your stones, and here's your cash.
I think Don's figured out a way he can buy more Three Musketeer bars.
They're all at the bottom of the barrel for a reason, Scott, because the kids that don't show up, I'm going to get most of those.
He does. I can tell you, like I said, I've been in that pantry before. He does not need any more Three Musketeer bars.
I'm going to come straight out and say that is a trick. I can't imagine how UTMB could finance a cash value for stones. So I'm going to say trick from logistic purposes alone.
And Scott, had I gone first, I would have been the first to say it's a trick. That business model sucks. And I don't think UTMB is foolish. I don't think they did that.
Hey, Andy, was this one of your April Fool's articles that you wrote at I Run Far? For some reason, I think I remember an April Fool's I Run Far article, AJW's Tap Room, that talked about this. So I just confirmed, it hit me right now. This was an article, it may have even been this year. It is a trick.
It's a trick. It's a trick. Although I gotta say, Don, it does not. I mean, look, if you're in the race organizing business, and you're getting all sorts of grief from people who are saying your race is really hard to get into, it's terrible, I've been trying for 10 years to get in your race, and you can turn around and say, fine, would you rather just take $2,000? Because we'll give you $2,000 right now, and we'll call it good. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if Western states or Hard Rock would ever do this. I don't know, but yes, absolutely, this is a trick. Their UTMB does a lot of things that I think some people think are questionable, but I don't think they would ever do this. And you're right, Scott.
Was it an article?
I wrote about it a few years ago in one of my April Fool's columns.
I actually read your articles, Andy. See, I knew it'd come in handy at some point.
We'll go ahead and put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, right. If I remember. All right, here's my next one. This was an influential study that was published by the British Journal of Sports Medicine in 2019, and they examined how morning exercise impacts cognitive performance and brain function. So the variables are morning exercise, how that impacts cognitive performance and brain function. What they did was they had participants who engaged, they studied participants who engaged in moderate morning exercise, like running or walking, exhibited improved attention, visual learning, and decision-making abilities throughout the day compared to those who remained sedentary. The researchers suggested that morning exercise could boost cognitive performance by enhancing cerebral blood flow and the release of neurotropic factors like brain-derived neurotropic factor, which support learning and memory. So morning exercise.
Was there any clarifying question? Any kind of parameters around the exercise duration or intensity or anything like that, or was it just sort of a large umbrella of morning exercise?
I think it was a large umbrella. I guess people that that do that either walking or running in the morning.
I'm reminded of, and I know we've seen this. I know when I was in education, we would see this all the time about, Japan is famous for it, right? Where the Japanese schools, the school day would start every day with all of the students, doing a series of either Tai Chi or other kinds of exercise with the idea that it sort of gets the blood flow going and sort of is a catalyst to brain function. I'm calling this a treat. I think this is a treat. And not only, and if it's a trick, I think it should be a treat. But but I think it's a treat. And as somebody who's a morning exerciser myself, not that my brain function is very good, but I am a morning exerciser, so maybe it's better than it would be if I was an afternoon exerciser. It's a treat.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that rationale, AJW, and I'm thinking I'm learning something here, that because I want it to be true. And so I want to believe it. I want it to be a treat. So I'm thinking, yes, taking in the data, please make that true. I want it to be true. And so I think when we come across a lot of things in life, we look somehow to support our opinion or our bias, and we lean that direction, how we want to see things. And we select and hear certain facts to support that, to make ourselves right. Maybe just, for our own ego, for not wanting to be wrong. And I want this to be absolutely true, that as hunters and gatherers, we need to be our smartest and our best when we're moving. First thing in the morning, go out, collect and gather food, and we need to be thinking better than any other time in the day. So, because breakfast is the most important meal, and our ancestors knew that. And so I think this is an absolute treat, which is, for those that may not take notes earlier, that means it's true. Go, Scott.
Everybody grab your candy bar and let's cheers. That is an absolute treat. Absolutely true.
Right on.
The world is right. The world is right.
So we have learned that the key so far is to run in the morning with a pink beverage.
Exactly.
Take notes of these, Brian. Put these things together, because that's going to be the show notes, and we need to learn from this stuff. And I have a great story.
That's the title of Andy's new book. Run in the morning with pink drink. All right, Don.
In 1995, a small trail race in Wyoming called the Buffalo Ridge 50K gained notoriety for the impossible to break course record. The record had been set by this local runner. His name was Tom Daniels, who finished the race in an astonishing 2 hours and 30 minutes. And you might be thinking, for a 50K, that's an elite time. But what made it amazing is it was superhuman in the fact that it was a rugged terrain and lots of elevation, lots of vert on this run. Over the next 2 decades, elite runners from across the country tried to beat Tom's time, but no one even came close. The local race director always stood by the record, displaying Tom's photo at every race with his remarkable time printed below. Strangely, Tom never competed in another race after his record-setting run, and there's some question whether this time was legitimate. Trick or treat?
Oh man, this is one of those kind of mystical runner kind of things, who comes out from behind the, I'm dying to go to my phone right now and look old Tom Daniels up on Ultra Sign Up, which I'm sure he would not be. Like Don, like you, with Scott's most recent story, I really want it to be true. I want there to be this mystical Tom Daniels who ran the race and was never heard from again, kind of like Kyle Skaggs in the 2008 Hard Rock, where he just wowed the world with this incredible run with 2 water bottles and no shirt and shorty shorts and minimal shoes and then wandered off into the sunset. But I think you made this whole thing up. I think this is a trick.
All right.
When was the record? When was the record set?
1995.
So it's
a Buffalo Ridge
stood
50K.
Since 1995.
Mm-hmm.
Since 1995. I'm going to say it's a treat.
So we've got a treat and a trick. So this is the first time we've separated the two.
We're split.
Well, finally, in 2017, organizers decided to officially investigate this matter, suspecting that maybe Tom had somehow accidentally or even deliberately skipped a portion of the course. After retracing the exact path from the 1995 race and reviewing witness accounts, they discovered that on an old section of the trail had been incorrectly marked and led Tom to unintentionally cut off nearly 8 miles off the route. When confronted, Tom admitted to this error and maintained that he had never realized it at the time. The race record was officially nullified, and the race directors apologized to those who had chased this impossible mark for years.
So wait, you said, what did you say?
So how do we score?
You said trick.
So how do we score this, right?
Crap.
I think Don has kind of bent things up a little bit here. So
bent the rules.
Ryan,
I would say that you're right.
I said trick.
Yeah, I think. Well, number one, there isn't. So it's a trick. This was a trick. It was not true. There isn't a race called the 50K in Wyoming. There was nobody called Tom Daniels, but although AJW wished that there was, which
you made the name up? The whole thing
none of
is
this
false?
is true. Yes.
Yes.
It was so close to feeling true that I even doubted it.
All
right.
All
You
right.
have an
All
edge.
fabrication.
I guess
No Buffalo Ridge, no Tom Daniels. No 2017 organizers went out to retrace.
Oh, Don.
All of it untrue. Yeah.
Don, you have exceeded expectations.
Well, ChatGPT is a good friend. That's what I'll tell you. All right. So new score. Ryan, can you give us the score? Do you have what we're looking at? You don't have to mention that I'm leading, but go ahead.
Right now, it's Don and AJW are tied with 4, with Scott at 3.
Nice. Okay.
All right. Well, I guess we probably got time for one more round.
Yes.
So, okay, this story starts with the legendary University of Oregon track coach, Bill Bowerman. And as he was establishing that incredible program up in Eugene, he developed, basically, a recruiting machine. And he began by recruiting locally and regionally, but ultimately, ended up recruiting on a national and even international level. And one of his most unique, perhaps the most unique qualities of his recruiting, kind of his recruiting tactics, when a recruit would come for an on-campus visit, high school kid, he would ask them, when he had his interview, they would come in and they would spend a day with the team and visit classes and do all the things that recruits do and go eat in the dining hall. And then Bowerman would meet with them at the end of their visit and chat and ask how it would go. But then he would ask them, "Hey, can you hold out your hands? Hold out your hands, please." And the recruit would be like, "What? What's this old man asking me to hold out his hands for?" But of course they would do it. They would diligently do it. And Bowerman would kind of consult their hands and then go to this little notebook he had and make a little note in his book and then send them on their way. Years later, coming out of Britain, a study emerged with a correlation between high VO2 max and a longer ring finger than index finger. Let me say that again. A correlation came out of Great Britain. A study came out of Great Britain where there was a correlation of high VO2 max for individuals who had a longer ring finger than they do index finger. The study, of course, came long after Bowerman's unorthodox recruitment tactics. Maybe Bowerman had his own sort of juju there. But this study, of course, blew up and added, just like all three of us have done, kind of looking at our hands and, Don saying, "Which one's my ring finger?" But you look at, and of course, I think the rest is history.
Oh, that's nice. So now, I love this story. It's absolutely a trick. And the reason that I think that AJW is telling this story is he looked at his own hand. He saw that his ring finger was actually longer, and he wove a story around the fact that he might have a VO2 max advantage over the other two hosts here. That's why it's a trick, but he wants it to be true. Let's see that hand, AJW. Let's see that finger.
He wants to go to his race this weekend and say, "Hey, guys, look at my hands.
Look at that finger. It's longer." So
you're saying it's a trick?
Yes. Yeah. He wants it to be true.
I'm already losing, and so I have to gamble. I'm going to say it's a treat.
Wise play.
So a new study out of Swansea University in Great Britain studied the oxygen consumption of 133, they call them footballers, so basically soccer players, and studied the relationship between the length of the ratio of the length of a person's index finger versus their ring finger. They also studied whether or not this would lead to earlier cardiovascular disease or severity of COVID. And it turns out that of the study of the 133 professional football players, it proved that the players with long ring digits relative to their index digit have 5% more efficient oxygen metabolism, such that they reach high maximal oxygen consumption in an incremental cardiopulmonary test to exhaustion on a treadmill. Longer ring digits relative to index digits are indeed a sign of higher VO2 max.
Huh.
Okay, well, everybody hold up your hand.
Just got interesting.
I think it proves that I'm screwed. Looks like Don is right in the middle.
Don's
Andy.
So you can see the rings.
Andy's
on my absolutely
longer. That's freakishly long, Andy.
Yeah, it is. I know.
And Ryan was even.
Ryan's even.
He's even.
Yeah, You know what they say about if you're
Oh,
even.
that's right.
I don't know if there's a study for even. So all of you with a longer ring finger, go get some pink liquid and what was the other one? And exercise in the morning.
Yeah.
All right. So the score now, I think it's tightened up a bit, Ryan. What do we have, Ryan, for the score?
So now, I think it's all tied back up.
No, because Don got that wrong, right? So
Right.
but Scott,
Yeah. So
it's
Scott,
So
also
Scott and I are
point.
tied, and you're one up.
Well, everyone still has 4 now because that was AJW's
Okay, so it's
question.
tightened
Because
up.
Andy,
This is interesting.
Andy didn't vote on that one.
Yeah, I
Okay.
didn't vote on my own one. All right, 2 to go.
Okay, this one has direct relationship to the Trail Runner Nation Trail Triage app.
So can we
And
vote
one of the
first? Can
things that
can we for extra
Yeah,
points?
sure.
Can we vote before we even know? Like, I've got to double down, like the Daily Dog. I'm gonna wager 3 of
So
my
you're
points.
gonna call it a trick right now before
And
he
I'm gonna-
even gives his.
and I'm gonna push 3 points out there on this. I'm wagering 3 points.
He's,
if you're bold enough-
he's anting.
Wait, you just changed the rules, Don.
All right. I'm sorry to get in the middle of things. We'll do that next year. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay. So this is information that is research based. If you haven't heard about our Trail Triage app, it's free and it basically shows common running ailments, and you can click on it. It tells you what the ailment is, what are some common causes, and more importantly, what are some solutions that you can implement to try to overcome that ailment. Now,
Again, I want it
this
to be. I
one is
want it to be
something-
true. I want it to be true. Go ahead.
This is one that I was not aware of, and I've used this actually out at the canyons for a person that came in, and it has to do with nausea. And there is research that supports the idea of sniffing mint extract can help reduce nausea. A notable study published in the Annals of Emergency Medicine in 2018 found that inhaling mint extract vapor was effective in reducing nausea in emergency departments patients. And in this random clinical trial, patients who sniffed mint extract reported significant relief from nausea compared to those given a placebo or standard anti-nausea treatments. The researchers concluded that the mint extract inhalation could be a simple, fast-acting, and inexpensive method to relieve nausea in certain situations.
Scott, where did a couple clarifying questions? This is a pattern
Yeah.
now. Where is the study from?
Swansea
It is
University?
from the Annals of Emergency Medicine in 2018.
Okay.
So
The reason
I get the what this came from. It came from the stuff the solutions in the Trail Triage app were written by an emergency room doctor. Anderson, what's his first name? I forgot his first name.
John Anderson.
John Anderson. He's a trail runner and emergency room doctor, and that's I guess where he got this information from, the Annals of Emergency Medicine.
the reason I ask, and I'm going to jump right in and say I think this is a treat. I think it's true. The reason I ask is years ago when I was a young pup ultra runner, I was doing some training on the Wasatch course with legendary Wasatch runner Rock Horton. And we were up really high in altitude, and I was starting to feel a little like queasy in my stomach. And we were doing a night run. We were, it was like, I don't know, 11 or 12 at night or something. And I was feeling a little queasy and so forth. And Rock came up to me and he's like, what's up? He could kind of tell I was a little bit sideways. And I was like, I'm just feeling a little bit nauseous. He reached into his pocket and he pulled out Olbas oil, Olbas, Olbas oil, which is from Switzerland, and it's minty. And it's sort of like Vicks Vapo Rub that your mom used to put on.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, put a little dab of this on your finger and just rub it under your nose. Rub it under your nose and then inhale. It has this incredible mint flavor, and it fixed the problem. And to this day,
Wow.
I carry a little vial of Olbus oil with me when I go out for long runs. So I'm calling it a treat.
Okay.
Well, I love how you you brought all the facts into the story, but left one out. It wasn't mint. I'm going to say it is false. Trick.
Well, Don and I have talked about this, so he's absolutely right. It's not mint extract. It's actually isopropyl alcohol. So if you take an isopropyl alcohol wipe and put it in your hydration pack or your fanny pack or your pocket, the isopropyl alcohol wipe, by sniffing that, helps relieve nausea. So everything was true except the product. It's not mint, it's isopropyl alcohol.
Oh man. All right.
Good one. Good one.
All right, Don.
Here we go.
Wait, where's the score? We need to get a score recap. Last item.
So
Where
that
are we,
makes
Rye?
that last answer pulled Don ahead 5 points, with you guys have 4. So you guys have to get this right, or else he wins.
So
So
Scott,
five.
if we both guess the same, we can all hold hands across the finish line.
I love it.
In the morning.
I think
In the morning after
In the
having
morning
a pink
with-
drink.
After having a pink drink.
this story is titled "The Runner Who Saved a Life." In 2017, ultra runner Kelly Agnew, and Kelly, if you're out there, this is about you, was participating in a 100-mile trail race in Colorado when she took a wrong turn due to a missing trail marker. While trying to find her way back, she heard a faint cry for help. Help! Help! Following the sound, she discovered. Following the sound, she
I
discovered.
didn't know that this was.
and-
I didn't know that we were doing dramatizations.
We're doing sound effects. Help!
I'm really going for it all here because I could win this thing.
He's
Following
trying
the
to sell
sound,
it. He's selling it.
Following the sound, she discovered an injured hiker who had fallen down a ravine and broken his leg. With no cell reception, Kelly used her emergency beacon to alert rescue services. She stayed with the hiker and for several hours, keeping him warm and alert till help arrived. Kelly's unexpected detour and quick thinking likely saved the man's life. Remarkably, after the rescue, she resumed the race and still managed to finish within cutoff time. That was
Absolutely
in Colorado,
treat.
2017. Treat?
Absolutely a treat. Yep. That's a feel-good story. We're ending on a positive note. An absolute treat.
I think Scott is right, but I think Don, kind of like he did before with the Tom Daniels story and the fake Wyoming race and the officials getting together in 2017. I think Kelly Agnew is a man. And so it is a trick. The whole story's true, but it's not Kelly she, it's Kelly he.
Well, I would.
I have to stop there and say maybe Don is making an inference. Maybe do you know whether she's a she or he's a he?
I know the facts that I have, and I know Kelly knows, and we could certainly hear from her because there's no doubt that she's solid on gender position here for her.
Okay, so
yeah.
So okay. So you're saying it's a trick?
Yeah.
Well, here's what I'll tell you.
And I say it's a treat.
For full disclosure, the male, female, the gender, 0. There's 0 factor in that. So it's going to have to be based on all the other facts. But nice way to pick that out. So I'll let you. What was your position? Are you trick? Did you change AW?
I went with trick. I just thought, with like an androgynous name like that, and you're being so sneaky, and you actually prepared for this rather than what we normally do. That I thought you were playing chess, and it actually turns out you're just playing checkers.
Okay, well, AJW. I was trying to give you a little help so you could switch your position, but after that comment, I'm going to sit right where you are.
Okay, so are you staying? Is that your final answer?
I'm
Andy?
staying
Trick?
I'm staying with Trick.
And I'm with Treat.
This is here we go. The runner who saved a life is a true story. It's a treat. There are documented cases of trail runners coming across injured hikers or lost individuals and using their endurance knowledge and their wilderness preparedness to provide assistance. In 2017, Kelly Agnew, a real ultra runner, saved an injured hiker during a race. So there it is.
Well done.
Well, I invented the game and I lost.
AJW, this no doubt is one for the records. It is a good game. I like it. It's a nice twist on all of the many variables that we have for this grab bag, guess whatever we're thinking.
I thought it was really good too, and I think it's kind of fun to try to make something to be like, okay, I want to do a trick, but I have to make it believable enough, or you want to do a treat, but you want to make it unbelievable enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope the listeners liked it. This was a lot of fun. And I mean, fortunately for everybody, even if we do it again, it's going to be a whole nother year. So
which means I can use the same stories, right?
Yeah, we can, and I can go back to some other I Run Far column as long as I can make sure Scott doesn't remember it.
And Scott can advertise our app that we're giving away
That's
for
right.
free.
But I think clearly we need some morning runners, some pink beverages, all the way around,
and some
alcohol wipes.
Some alcohol wipes and some pianos in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, guys. Always
Andy,
a good time.
thanks
Always
for
a good
doing
time.
that. Hey, Andy, tell us with Crack a Brew, you're on a new season now, right? What season are you on, and what's the theme?
It's amazing, guys. We are on season 8. Thanks a lot.
Wow.
Thanks in large part to you all who've spent years, trying to convince me to have my own podcast. So Crack a Brew with AJW is one episode into season 8. The recent episode was with John Medinger. For the last several seasons, I've had a theme around the 8 episodes. So last season was 200 milers, and this theme is the Council of Elders, And so I'm bringing back, bringing onto the podcast folks who've been around a long time, and on the list of folks coming in this season, John Medinger. Coming up on Saturday is David Horton, from Virginia.
Yeah.
Jerry Kilgariff, legendary Arizona runner, Eric Clifton, John Giesler. So
Wow.
folks that are in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, and kind of telling old stories. And it's a lot of fun. Crack a Brew rolls on. Believe it or not, at the end of this season, we will have been doing it for 2 years. So
Wow.
yeah, just awesome. Yeah. Now, of course, you guys have been doing
Andy.
it for whatever, 13 years, but
You know what? I
Well,
would be very
excellent.
interested. I'd be very interested in hearing a summary when you're done with that series, that season. I would love to hear just kind of some takeaways from that, because you can extract so many great comments and some dialogue afterwards. I think there's a bonus episode wrapped up in there somewhere, because what a treat.
yeah. And remember, you guys, we remember some of our years past, we talked about golden nuggets, that kind of golden nugget, that piece of advice or that thing and I'm thinking this Council of Elders series is just going to be like piles and piles of golden nuggets. Because you talk to anybody who's been in the sport, 38 years, and there's, something's going to come up. And so, yeah, that's a good idea, Don. Maybe a 9th episode in the series would be sort of the golden nuggets from the Council of Elders, something like that.
Isn't it crazy? And I'm just assuming this is going to happen as you go through these interviews, that they figured it out 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. And what they figured out back then, I mean, you may talk to one of these guys and they found out that pink colored hydration is better. And they figured out 30 years ago, but we haven't known about it. It just needs to, it's one of those tribal knowledge things that needs to be handed down. I think it's amazing that in today's world where we're always learning, continually learning new things from science and medicine, that some of these things were actually figured out way, way, way before, just because of the school of hard knocks.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say something else about things figured out, because you guys led me into the podcast space, as a longtime guest on Trail Runner Nation before I became a podcast host myself. And I think what the pieces of wisdom and tribal knowledge that you passed on to me were pretty much twofold. One, be yourself, right? Be yourself. Like you guys, we joke and banter and everything else, but be yourself, be your authentic who you are, and bring on guests that you genuinely want to talk to learn from, to glean information from, where it's actually a conversation that is literally like, people sitting in across from each other over a cup of coffee or something like that. I mean, it really is true. And those two pearls of wisdom that you guys shared, which has always been, part of Trail Runner Nation. I mean, whether it's the coach panel you guys have on, or the authors you have on, or the scientists you have on, or the athletes you have on. I think in the world of podcasting, at least the way it is right now in trail and ultra running, there's a dime a dozen for podcasts. But if you can engage with a guest, and if you as a host, and you guys live and breathe this, if you as a host can bring enthusiasm and passion and love for the sport to it, then people are going to listen to it, and they might wait a week to listen to it. Heck, they might wait a month to listen to it. But I think that that's something that, as we kind of continue on this journey, I think is really fun. And so in terms of the pearls of wisdom and like the golden nuggets, there's a lot of golden nuggets out there. And I think there's kind of a lesson for life that, we can teach each other a lot as long as we listen and pay attention.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, Andy, thanks for coming.
Hold on, Scott. I want to invite Scott and I onto that 9th episode. I don't know if you agree with us coming on. I would love to have Ryan take some of those clips of some of those interesting things and play them one by one, and have us have a 3-way dialogue on what an amazing golden nugget that they dropped and handed to you. And I think it'll be a fun conversation. I know I'd learn a lot.
That's Don's way of having Ryan do all the work. What I would suggest, Don, is let's listen to the episodes ourselves and come up with our own golden nuggets and bring them on, rather than Ryan doing the heavy lifting. Can you listen to other episodes? Do you listen to podcasts, Don?
Ryan I said Ryan because he is the producer over there at AJW Crack a Brew. He's there. He's listening in real time. And he's the one that says, oh, I'm going to take this out and put it there for those guys to talk about. I mean, that's the producer's job, and he's good at it. I don't want to put my bias in there. I don't want to find my things out.
Years ago, I remember talking to when I was still, in high school, and I was I was talking to my mom, and we were talking about, is still a consummate entertainer, and we had this Christmas party every year, and it was like the neighborhood Christmas party everybody wanted to go to, and as it evolved, people began to invite themselves to it, and I used to get very offended. I used to get very offended by people who invited themselves to the party and just showed up. But then my mom said, oh, don't worry. The people who invite themselves are usually the best guests. And so here you go, Don. Here you go. You invited yourself on Crack a Brew with AJW, season 8, episode 9. We'll have Ryan. It'll be episode 9. That's a bonus episode. We'll have Ryan send you the link now so that it can be buried in your email and you can forget about it. And then we'll give you a refresher. I actually love the idea. I think it would. I mean, I don't know how these 8 episodes are going to evolve. I've only recorded 2, but I just have a hunch they're just going to be awesome. So yeah, thanks for inviting yourself, Don.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilkins. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's funny. Hey, Andy, this has been a pleasure. It's been way too long since you've been here, and I always have fun when we get to talk with you.
Hey, it's always fun too, and it was great. And hey, trick or treat, happy Halloween,
So go
Happy
out,
Halloween.
Scott,
and run
Mas.
Mas.